my goodness, Lisa, we're back.
I know. First of all, I missed you. Last session we did, we were celebrating Pride Month, and I was like, my Dr. Tammy's not here. So I'm so excited you're here because you are my fellow Jedi. So
Yes.
you're here. Yeah. So I'm Lisa Wisner, and I am one of the co-hosts of Jedi Talks, and this is a space where Dr. Tammy and I just kind of have conversations and commit ourselves to examining our beliefs and our habits that are related to the Jedi way, right, Dr. Tammy?
Absolutely. And we've talked about that. So, hey, this is great. I'm excited about today.
Yeah, we're so excited. So Jedi Talks is all about positive action towards justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. But Dr. Tammy and I agreed that we believe in belonging, advocacy. We can go on and on. So we're all about just being a Jedi in your life. And yes, if you do like the epic space opera, Star Wars, yes, we believe that the Force is truly here with us as well. And so we're excited to be recognizing the Force that is within us. And if we spur it into action, it really is the change that we need in the world. And so today, Dr. Tammy was celebrating Juneteenth.
Juneteenth. I'm so excited. Yes.
I am so excited. For those of you who may not know what Juneteenth is, you're living under a rock. But Juneteenth is an African-American holiday, but now a national holiday here in the United States that celebrates June 19th, 1865, the day that the last of the emancipated slaves were freed. And Dr. Tammy, before we get started, I don't know if you mind, I want to introduce everybody to the Vice President and the President of the United States making this announcement for us. So we'll be right back.
So throughout history, Juneteenth has been known by many names: Jubilee Day, Freedom Day, Liberation Day, Emancipation Day, and today, a national holiday. For more than 2 years, the enslaved people of Texas were kept in servitude. For more than 2 years, they were intentionally kept from their freedom. For more than 2 years. And then on that summer day, 156 years ago, the enslaved people of Texas learned the news. They learned that they were free, and they claimed their freedom. We are gathered here in a house built by enslaved people. We are footsteps away from where President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. And we are here to witness President Joe Biden establish Juneteenth as a national holiday. We have come far, and we have far to go.
By making Juneteenth a federal holiday, all Americans can feel the power of this day and learn from our history and celebrate progress and grapple with the distance we've come, but the distance we have to travel, Jim. You know, I said a few weeks ago, marking the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, great nations don't ignore their most painful moments. Great nations don't ignore their most painful moments. They don't ignore those moments in the past. They embrace them. Great nations don't walk away. We come to terms with the mistakes we made. Thank you, man. Thank you. All right.
Dr. Tammy, I wish the music was still going. I'm over here like dancing up a storm. I'm so excited. I know that you were actually at a party yesterday celebrating Juneteenth with the entire Corpus Christi, it felt like, except for me.
It was an event of 200 people, and it sold out.
Yes. Can I drop everything? They should have put seats in the corner for the, like, you know, like bleachers or whatever, like the bird seats where you're like in the grass. Yeah, that's what they should have. Yeah. Well, I'm so excited because actually today we're also celebrating a few champions in our community who have been celebrating Juneteenth alongside us. And so as we're talking about Juneteenth and celebrating Juneteenth, I want to introduce you all to my Dr. Amy Aldridge Sanford. And I also want to introduce everybody to Dr. Alissa Mejia. Welcome, everyone.
Good morning, y'all. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. So, Dr. Tammy, I think we can get started right away because I think we have a lot to discuss. So, I just want to ask, what does anybody have any thoughts of what Juneteenth means to you? Maybe that's how we can get started.
I can talk about what it means to me as a U.S. American, as a person whose family has been in the country since before it was a country. To me, it's the real Independence Day. And you'll hear a lot of people say that. I really don't look at July 4th anymore as Independence Day, because not everyone was free. And so I think June 19th is a better celebration of that. And I was really excited to see what Vice President Harris and President Biden and members of Congress made happen this week. That was really exciting. It's one step toward many things that need to happen to make our country better. And I love the words of our president. We don't run from our mistakes. We don't run from the bad things we've done. And we embrace it. And now we're celebrating Juneteenth as a whole country. And I think that's fantastic.
I love that. It makes us stronger to celebrate and I guess recognize where we have come from. And before we even go any further, huge shout out to our Leticia Wilson. How's it going?
Hey, Leticia.
Leticia, so emotional, getting chills, watching the announcement by VP of the USA, Harris. We have come far, but we have far to go. President Biden, great nations come to terms with the mistakes. Exactly what you said, echoing the words you said, Dr. Amy. We appreciate that. What about you, Alissa? What does Juneteenth mean to you?
For me, it really is a sign for me of having not done enough. I think that's the main thing I relate to. I had never heard of Juneteenth until I was in college. And even then, it was only because I worked for the newspaper and heard about everything that way. Otherwise, I wouldn't have heard about it even then. And then I, would go to something if it was happening and kind of reached me, but I wouldn't seek it out. I didn't remember it every year for a lot of years. And it was only when I had my own kids that we started seeking out the celebrations and bringing them, although COVID didn't let us do that last year. But the whole thing is just, it's a big wake-up call that, it wasn't on my radar, and I try to stay involved. It's not on a lot of people's radar. And I guess, as Joe Biden said, it resonates. Like, we have far to go. And the more we think about the past, the more we see the signs that past is still affecting the present.
That is so true. And like Dr. Tammy likes to do, I think it's time for an education moment, right? I do want to chime in, Dr. Tammy, and just point out the fact that, as we're talking about Juneteenth, it's very important to understand that the reason why Juneteenth exists is because even after the Emancipation Proclamation by President Abraham Lincoln, it was actually hidden from the Texas slaves, right? So the Texas slave owners, the masters were like, oh, we don't need to let them know they're free, right? And so as we're talking through this presentation, I just want to point out that we do have champions within this community that have done such amazing work. And so I want to just point out that as we're looking at the reason why we're celebrating Juneteenth, in 1862, the 13th Amendment passed Congress, officially abolishing the institution of slavery. But it would take 2 years, more than 2 years actually, to spread the word to the slaves in Texas. And you might be wondering why it took so long. So I want to show you this map, because the Emancipation Proclamation only freed enslaved Africans in the Confederate States liberated by Union troops. So we had to have Union troops come in and liberate the slaves in the states. And Texas was the last, right? So the Texas slaves were the last to hear the news. And so I just want to celebrate this photo, this gentleman right here, because on June 19th, 1865, Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger landed at Galveston, Texas with the news that the Civil War was over and the roughly 250,000 enslaved people were free. And Dr. Tammy, just for, emphasis, do you mind reading the orders, the proclamation that was read?
No, I don't. So General Orders number 3, the orders read, the people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and the rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them, because that between employer and hired labor, the freedom are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts, that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tammy. So I have to just say, who is a descendant of General Granger? Because if it wasn't for General Granger and the Union troops, you know, do you think it would have been 3, 4, 5? Who knows how many more years it would have been before our Texas people found out?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah.
How do y'all feel about this? Dr. Tammy or Dr. Amy, how do you feel about the orders, the proclamation of freedom?
You know, the words that stick out to me that I heard Dr. Tammy say so eloquently is the absolute equality of personal rights. I just think about how far we still have to go with that. You know, it was a hope and a wish and a prayer, right? And we just haven't gotten there yet. And the other thing that really sticks out to me is how long it took really to separate slavery, right? Had to separate enslaved people from the situation. It's not that, you know, this came out and then all of a sudden everybody, you know, is free and living on their own property that they owned, or, you know, had their own land and raising their families. I mean, we still are talking about the loss of generational wealth, right? And not to get too far off topic, but I was in Tulsa a few weeks ago at the commemoration of the Tulsa massacre of 1921. There's a place generational wealth was starting to occur, and people in the community, white people in the community who didn't like it, stopped that from happening. And that's happened a lot of places over the modern day United States. And so Black folks have lost time toward independence, you know, and that really sticks out to me when I hear Dr. Tammy read these orders from 1865.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Tammy, you have some friends in the audience. Lakeisha, Mosley, welcome. And my sister, Annie, is watching. Welcome, Annie. And I like how Annie is completely vulnerable here. She didn't realize much about Juneteenth, even though I know she has been to Juneteenth celebrations with me. She probably just didn't realize what we were celebrating, but like she came to dinner parties and everything. And so the point here is, I think it's just an education, right?
Absolutely.
I think even when I think about July 4th, right? I think a lot of people just say, oh, July 4th holiday, not realizing that why is that holiday existing, right? So now here we are explaining what Juneteenth means. And Leticia said it very clearly. It was a delay of a message. And how critical is it to make sure that everybody gets the same information at the same time? So we definitely have a lot to cover. But as we're moving forward with our education moments, I definitely want to point out, why is it called Juneteenth? You know, even though the newly freed slaves in Texas, like Dr. Amy said, they didn't receive the full benefits of freedom, they turned the day that General Granger came and spoke those words into a celebration. June 19th was coined Juneteenth, which is a blending of the words June and 19th. Can I just say, innovation, innovation, innovation? You know, like, come on, somebody just give me like a high five right there. Some branding happened like in the 1800s, and I absolutely love feeling that. You know, how much did that emotion of freedom just resonate that they were like, oh, we have to remember this day and like stamp it, right, for us to celebrate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, it's super exciting for me. And so the main reason why we're here is actually because of Alissa, Dr. Mejia. Alissa, can I just mention that you have done such amazing work in our community in regards to parks. And as we're talking about Juneteenth, one of the things that came up for Dr. Tammy and I, and this is probably, I have to say the reason why we started JEDI Talks was because Dr. Tammy and I are co-organizers of TEDx events. And so we had a TEDx event where the theme was actually JEDI. And while we were planning the event, we hadn't even had the event yet, so much conversation was happening about justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. And we just felt like we want to talk live with people about what's going on, really what's going on in the community. And so a conversation started about the use of Cole Park, because our TEDx events are called TEDx Cole Park, which is a park that is here in Corpus Christi, Texas. So if you haven't been following JEDI Talks, our very first episode will give you a little bit of a taste of where we came from with this. And it all lands very squarely on the work that Alissa Mejia has done. And so as I tee up Alissa Mejia's work, I just want to let you know that because of the growing segregation of areas such as parks, businesses, schools even, it was actually illegal for Blacks to celebrate in these establishments, in these public places. You couldn't use parks, couldn't use business establishments, couldn't even use schools. So in response, we actually had freed slaves in Houston who actually put their funds together and purchased land to hold their celebrations in 1872. 1872. I mean, come on, somebody. They saved and purchased 10 acres of land to celebrate Juneteenth. And I know Dr. Gloria Scott, if she was here, she would be chiming on about Emancipation Park, which is in Houston, Texas. And for those of you who are not aware, we are so excited that Emancipation Park exists. But I do want to talk a little bit about the parks we have here in Texas, in Corpus Christi. And so Alissa has an amazing presentation that sets the tone for us, because as the president said, it's important to pay attention to where we come from so we know where we need to go.
Hi, I'm Alissa Mejia, and I'm going to talk about how one of Corpus Christi's most loved public spaces came to be called Cole Park. The park is named for E.B. Cole, once called the pioneer real estate dealer of Corpus Christi. During his 60-year career, from 1890 to 1950, the city modernized and grew 24 times larger. Cole had a central role in that. He spent his life convinced that Corpus Christi was destined to become one of the largest cities in Texas, which were the words he printed on brochures and gave out around the country to recruit land buyers. For decades, he was the city's biggest champion. Cole's best-known legacy is his donation of Cole Park, which at the time was just an unimproved, eroding 6 acres that looked very unlike the mile-long, manicured 43 acres the city has developed it into today. Yet, Cole's legacy is not all good. He began developing exclusive, high-end neighborhoods along the bayfront. Anyone who has paid much attention to real estate will recognize that while these words sound positive, they're only meant for certain people. Racial segregation was the norm during Cole's era, and he not only went with the flow, he helped drive it. He worked with developers who banned Black residents, and he included Caucasian-only restrictions in his own development plans. With people of color mostly not allowed to live in the bayfront neighborhoods, their access to Cole Park, historically a popular swimming beach for the city, was harder. Residential segregation has caused lasting inequity. We see it in the disparities in access to opportunities and in health outcomes. Even accidental drowning rates for Black and Hispanic people are consistently higher than those of white people. That's no surprise, given people of color's historically lower access to water recreation, including right here. Now, the purpose of this talk is not to encourage getting out the pitchforks over E.B. Cole. It's about awareness that Cole Park is a prominent local example of a pattern common across the nation. The land it occupies was taken from Native Americans, traded by those who took power, controlled by people of privilege, and named for someone who furthered white supremacy. Today, Cole Park remains one of our most prominent public places. A new pier is scheduled to open this fall, with an archway purposely reminiscent of the one Cole commissioned to honor his donation nearly a century ago. I encourage you to look at the Cole Park name whenever you go down Ocean Drive. Think of what could have been if someone in power had stood up to a repressive system, rather than going with the flow or advancing it. Use it as a reminder to leverage what power and privilege you might have to advocate for equality any chance you get. Thank you for visiting this event today. And if you want more local inspiration and education about our parks, follow Corpus Christi Park and Beach Van on Instagram.
Alyssa, can I just get a round of applause, everyone? If you are in the chat, if you're watching right now and you have access to comment, can we get a waterfall of cheering Alyssa, Dr. Alissa Mejia on for doing that research for us? You know, I think it's absolutely imperative to understand that somewhere, somehow, somebody must do some research to find out why are we where we're at. And the true understanding of that actually lays the foundation of where we are. You know, if you don't know where you're at, how are you going to move forward, right? And sometimes you end up somewhere and you don't really truly understand how you got there. And I think that was the experience you had, Dr. Tammy, right?
Well, you know, and if we mentioned the first episode, so if you go back to that, you will see how uncomfortable I was at sharing my experience about Cole Park, because my experience was just what Dr. Mejia just revealed to us when she did her actual history, because I knew my family, we didn't go to Cole Park. Like, I didn't go to Cole Park until I was in college and came back. Like, all growing up, we wouldn't go past, we just stayed on the shoreline side. And if you know anything about Corpus, the shoreline kind of, then it turns into Ocean Drive. And so Cole Park is on Ocean Drive, and we couldn't go on that side. We had to stay on the pier where the seawall is, and that's where we hung out. And it's interesting that now that she brings it, you know, she brings this to light, what happened, that, you know, that was my experience. And so I will say that that was kind of validation that what I remember, because I was really little. So, you know, so you got to, you know, so your memories, you know, there, you remember some things, but not everything. And you don't necessarily know why. And so it's really interesting that when she brought that up and how it was not for Black people, how that really validated my experience and really made it real, like, okay, that's what I remember. That's what I experienced. And I probably didn't need that. But it was just interesting because that was, you know, when you have memories, it's really interesting. So thank you, Dr. Mejia, for sharing that and being honest in it, because I think a lot of history is hidden and suppressed. And so thank you for sharing the truth and a little bit about Corpus. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just over here getting emotional over the fact that when I moved here, for me, Cole Park was like the place to go. It was like so exciting for me, and it's so celebratory, I guess you could say. Like, Cole Park, awesome! The playground for the kids. Now we have a skate park. And then to hear your story of how it was actually not a welcoming place, like it felt like there was there was a virtual wall, right? Like an invisible wall.
It was an invisible wall.
You couldn't go there, you know, as a child. And Cole Park is huge here in Corpus Christi. So it's just sad, you know. And I think to myself, how as humans, how does this happen, right? And so I think the only way we move forward is by recognizing that some of our strength, right, some of our platforms have to come from understanding this is where you have come from. Who came before you to give you the opportunity to enjoy Cole Park? You know, what happened for that to happen? So Alissa, I want to actually ask you, because you don't only do you didn't only do this research one-off, right? So this isn't just research about Cole Park. You've always been I guess you could say, an advocate for park justice, is what I call it, right? So you're all about social justice as it comes to parks. How did you get started with that, and how did you get involved in thinking about parks and beaches?
It's kind of a long story. I guess I'm just a surfer. I moved here to be close to the water, and that spiraled into, I always like to learn and get involved, so I'm always pushing that. So going back to school, getting grad degrees here at A&M Corpus, becoming part of you can get appointed onto city boards, and I learned that. So I asked to be appointed onto the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and that was a huge learning experience. So I've been on it for 5 years now. I'm the chair at this point. Stuff comes before us, and that led into, when there's decisions to make, well, what is the background of that? There's more than we're just having presented to us on the surface level. And it also led to wanting to communicate more about this. So I ended up starting an Instagram account, which I use to communicate. There's lighthearted good news. I think that's what gets the majority of people listening, but then sprinkled in there, I do history. So it's like, you come for one thing, well, you're going to probably see the history posts, and it's not all of it's good. You know, there's plenty in the past that we can dig up and I think in the long run, I mean, it helps us improve. Learning where we've come from helps us examine some of the current issues and how we can make those better and how we can advocate for more equity. So there's definitely parks that, I mean, I had no idea what I was getting into researching this stuff. And there's stuff that comes out about Hispanic rights, Black rights, LGBTQ rights. It's all in our park system, and it's how are we using our public dollars? It says a lot about our priorities and where we are as a society.
What is the, so I have to just point out, my sister is actually asking, Annie's asking, what is the Instagram account?
Oh, so it's called Corpus Christi Park and Beach Fan.
Beach Fam? F-A-M? And fan, sorry.
Yeah, I think she's frozen.
Is she frozen? Okay. Beach Fan, right? Oh, I got it. I found it. I'm gonna drop it in the comments. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
I can hear you.
we're just missing Dr. Mejia.
Yes.
So if you don't mind, everyone, I am going to be dropping in the link right there. So if you go to Instagram.com/Corpus Christi Park and Beach Fan. And so that's how you'll be able to connect with Dr. Mejia and the work that she's doing. And I'm sure she'll be right back, because as Leticia said, so much history that resonates from the soil. Oh, you know, I love how that felt, you know, just hearing that word soil, you know, is how important is it? You know, our foundations are like, you know, are you standing on solid rock or sinking sand? And so it's important to like solidify that rock, right? So that we're on a strong foundation as we move ahead. And I feel like that's what Juneteenth is all about.
Lisa, can I just say something really quickly about Alissa? Alissa, who is my colleague, you know, at the university as well. I just want to commend her for her activism, because systemic change is where real change happens, and that happens in policy and legislation. And that is what she's doing, you know, that going and working in the city as a volunteer on these commissions and councils are so important. And then pointing out the systemic history and segregation and working to change those things. I think that's very commendable. And I am curious, Alissa, I don't know if you know, but are those the things we saw in the city ordinances about it being Caucasian only and segregated or whatever, do those still exist in those ordinances, or were they removed at some point?
There were a couple orders. Oh gosh, I'm going to get the history wrong, but there were two separate federal orders that came down. It was, well, the Civil Rights Act, but also there was like I think a fair housing, and it was in the 40s and the 60s. So these are blanket, like they were invalidated, but the language is still there. So and this is unfortunate. So there are people, you own your house, you have no idea, you don't think about this, but there are literally people of color all over the country in some instances who are like, well, let's look at our deed, and their deed has this hurtful language in it because it doesn't mean all the paperwork got rewritten. It's not valid, but it's still there. So there are people who are actually paying their own money to go through the process to undo the deed for this hateful language. And I really wish, one flaw of this presentation is that I couldn't get into the deed office because it was closed for COVID precautions up to at least a month ago. I don't know if it has opened, but I couldn't get in there and look. And I think there's more in there. It's just very hard to find that needle in a haystack. But I think this language is in a lot of deeds locally.
Wow. Are you kidding? Like, you just opened a can of worms, Dr. Mejia. Mm-hmm. I think everybody's probably, if you own a home, if you're, you know, whatever it is, go look at your deed and see what it says. Right? Oh my goodness, I never thought about that.
And I think sometimes it might have come down in like the subdivision language, or I don't know if it's in everyone's individual deed. This is where I wanted to get in there and look at it all, and I'm not an expert, and I couldn't get and look at it. So I want to, I still will. I just need to learn more.
I love that. And this is the reason why we celebrate Juneteenth, right, Dr. Tammy?
Right.
I think it's important to remember, you know. Leticia says, my goodness.
Yeah.
Alissa just had a mic drop moment here in the show. It silenced us all.
So, I think so. And I think you have a fan. So where'd you get your shirt, Dr. Amy?
It is today's volunteer shirt and sponsor shirt for the event. I'm sure we'll talk about soon.
Yes.
In Cole Park. We're reclaiming it today.
Yes.
In Cole Park at 4:00.
Yes. Okay. I'm super excited. So let's just move through this presentation actually, because we do have more education. And if y'all are wondering why there's so much education sprinkled into the JEDI talks, it's because of Dr. Tammy here, who is an educator. So she always puts me like in that lens of, yeah, Lisa, but what are they learning? What are they learning? And so I have to put that education hat on. It's not about just hacking people into learning. They really have to learn. And so I want to thank Caller Times newspapers for doing an amazing article. They recently did an amazing article that actually shared information about Cole Park. And so what I'm going to do just very briefly is just go through a very small slideshow that shares some information about Cole Park. So this picture that you see is actually the very first photo that anybody has any recollection of when Juneteenth was celebrated. And so in this photo is Claire Pleasant, who inherited many family photos, including this image from a 1920 Juneteenth parade in Corpus Christi. And pictured is Anita Mays as Queen, the two small attendants, a Dorothy Kitchen Vaughn and her brother, L.C. Kitchen. Can you believe it? 1920, celebrating Juneteenth in a parade here in Corpus Christi. How amazing is that?
I had read something recently about how the early celebrations, and I don't know if this would have still been happening in 1920, but they would prominently feature Civil War veterans, Black Civil War veterans.
Yes.
At those celebrations. They would come in uniform and the whole thing. So I wonder if that's true for World War I vets, during this era.
And so just moving swiftly forward, into 1939. So we have now Antonio E. Garcia's Juneteenth Review. So this is an oil canvas painting. And I think, Alissa, do you know more about this painting?
I know a little bit, not enough. It's hard to dig up the background, but it was at South Bluff Park, which is a park that still exists in Corpus Christi. And to me, the interesting thing is Garcia was a South Texas fine artist, which in itself was pretty rare. He was Hispanic, and then for someone of his background to focus on a Black celebration, I think it was kind of a cross-cultural reference that was not at all common at the time. So it's really interesting that he had that perspective and wanted to show this part of the city and the joy and the pride of this celebration.
Yeah, I love this painting. It makes you feel like, yeah, I'm strutting. I look good, right? And I think Leticia, are you and I vibing today? Because I can feel the celebration in this picture. Yes, I feel exactly like what you said. It's truly amazing. Love this photo. Very swiftly into an amazing picture captured. I wonder who took this photo. Probably, it actually says who took this photo. We have Eric Schlegel from Caller Times. This is Patricia Silman Mills with the Mount Zion Baptist Church Choir in Corpus Christi singing during a gospel concert in the courtyard of the Multicultural Center on Chaparral Street here in Corpus Christi in 1987. Wow. How amazing is this photo? I love it. It's beautiful. And then the next photo we have is a photo of Tina Walker, who's 8 years old, and Gloria Strait, who's 6. And they're participating in a sack race at the Naval Air Station here in Corpus Christi during the Juneteenth celebrations on June 18th, 1988. Oh my goodness. I love hearing all these dates when I was a little kid. So I was like their age. So I was the same age as Tina. So I could totally be in there in the sack race doing it with her.
Well, I'm not saying how old I was.
You're not saying? I love this. And I want to thank George Gongora from Caller Times for this, Caller Times newspaper here in Corpus Christi, Texas, for this photo. We really appreciate it. And then we have another photo who is Roseanne Perry, who's 14, Shirley Johnson, and they're viewing a display of Black art at the TC Ayers Recreation Center on Winnebago Street. when I say all these names, I feel like, oh my gosh, we're saying history, and it's like, it's right there. Like, we can drive to it in 20 minutes, right? We're on Vergo Street, right? And so I absolutely love this picture. We also have in this picture is Faithful Cannon 14, Shalene Porter 14, and they're explaining the exhibit during a Juneteenth celebration. So I do want to point out that during Juneteenth celebrations, some of the ways that Juneteenth was celebrated was always having a focus on education and self-improvement. And I know that when I moved to Corpus Christi, Texas, and I got connected with people like Dr. Scott, Dr. Johnson, Sylvia, Tryon Oliver, and the whole entire community of the Corpus Christi Black Chamber of Commerce, I remember always having that sense of always being educated and always having that sense of, how can you be better, Lisa? Right? I remember Dr. Johnson sitting me down in her office and telling me, yes, Lisa, but what's next? And I'm having like an emotional moment now because I remember that so clearly, right? So you feel like you're coasting until somebody wakes you up. So I just think that Juneteenth means a lot to me when I moved to Corpus Christi.
I just say, Lisa, that tradition continues. In the 10 days of Juneteenth this year, we had a night at Cole School, and it was all about talking about going to college, what you need to do to go to college, and a poster contest. But it was really important in the legacy that continued.
Yes. And I know we have scholarship awards, right? So I know, Dr. Tammy, that we did have some scholarships that were given recently for our students.
Right. I think they mentioned last night that Tina Butler mentioned that there were 3 scholarships received recipients, and so they did a poster contest where they explored the theme of Juneteenth and what it means to them. So yeah, great.
I love that. And so can I just point out, like, here in Corpus Christi, I get the sense that the rest of the country is catching up to what we've already been celebrating, which is, I always know Juneteenth has 10 days of Juneteenth, right? From June 9th, we're always celebrating. Every day there's something going on. And so I think that's the important thing to mention. And so as we're going through the celebrations, I see these faces, and these are the familiar faces that you see at events. And so Berna Portis, who, by the way, Portis Kitchen, right, in downtown, best soul food ever.
Yes.
So her husband actually is the chef there, or he owns a restaurant. So we're so excited to have Portis Country Kitchen here in our community. And so Verna Portis is actually greeting Rufus Avery Jr. during a Juneteenth coalition meeting as they were planning the 10 days of celebration of the Emancipation Proclamation. So does anybody really know why the 10 days? I think Dr. Scott probably talked about the 10 days. So does anybody want to just give some education on that?
Well, I've been educated by Dr. Scott.
Exactly.
As we all are, when we're in her presence, you always learn something.
Yeah.
So my understanding, and Tammy, I know you've probably heard this explanation as well. She says it took Granger. It took, and I don't remember his rank, but it took Granger 10 days to come from Louisiana to Galveston to get the message delivered. Did I pass, Tammy?
You passed.
Okay.
You passed. And, in Corpus, it actually started out a day. And it started out a day, and it was just the day. And then eventually, they formed a committee, and it became a whole 10 days. And so, and every day there's something to commemorate the day. So, yeah.
I know. I always feel like when Juneteenth is starting, you get your agenda. It's like the agenda sheet that you get. Like, you are going to be here on this day, and you're going to be doing this on this day. And by the way, Juneteenth is coming. So if you're a student, a month before, you need to write your essay. You need to do your paintings. You need to do your drawings. I mean, I love that, and I think that's the point of celebrating Juneteenth, is really to engage our youth, because it's the next generation, right? Engage them in the celebration. And so, for those of y'all who are watching, looking for ideas of how to celebrate Juneteenth, Juneteenth was primarily about self-improvement and education by providing notable guest speakers. As you can see here, we have a picture of Pat Taylor, we have Lamont Taylor, we have Gloria Smith, and they're applauding during a performance at Del Mar, actually. And so this is in 2009. And so thank you again, Caller Times, for these amazing photos. And so I think, one of the reasons why I'm bringing this up is because, there's so many different ways to celebrate Juneteenth. You could do workshops, you could have guest speakers, scholarship awards like we do here in Corpus Christi. But I even know we have prayer services, right? So we have churches that actually designate Juneteenth as a time for prayer, right? Prayer towards movement of equity, towards opportunities. We have dinner parties, which y'all went to yesterday. It was like a black and white dinner party. I'm sure it was lots of fun. And then dance parties. I'm looking forward to the park party we're about to go to today. Later today, we're going to be all in a park. But I think one of the most exciting things that I've heard about celebrating Juneteenth is actually, have you heard that we have former slaves and their descendants actually make a pilgrimage to Galveston, Texas, where the first Juneteenth celebration happened? And so we talked about Emancipation Park. So can you imagine this pilgrimage of people going to Galveston to celebrate? I think for me, it sparks joy and excitement in regards to, uplifting your platform, right? Remembering where you came from and giving you the energy to move forward. So I want to share this photo that we also have, which is of people sitting in a shaded canopy area. And this is in South Bluff Park in Corpus Christi in 2011. Thank you to Paul Iverson for this photo. And this is a Juneteenth celebration that was in 2013 at Solomon Coles High School. And I absolutely love the fact that that we're having a lot of celebrations in many different places in our community. This was another celebration that was hosted, and actually this was sponsored by, I actually ended up going to this event by Commissioner Pusley, who sponsored the event that we went to. And so this was celebrating our defenders and protectors. So it was a great event with great speakers. Here you see Dr. Scott and Dr. Johnson. And so we have more photos of celebrations of Juneteenth. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that when I worked at City Hall, Dr. Scott would always come to my office at City Hall every time to visit with me when she was doing the proclamation of Juneteenth. And so I would be in my office watching City Council, like at my computer, and I would know without a fact that there'd be a call at the front because someone's there to see me, and would always be Dr. Scott. And so I'm so excited that we have this legend of a woman in our community to be able to celebrate Juneteenth with us. And
I just want to point out the pearls with a t-shirt.
Yes, I love it.
Classing it up. I like that.
She's always like, she would show up and like people in my office would be like, who is that? Who is that? I'd be like, that's Dr. Scott. You need to know who that is, right?
Like, what? You don't know who that is?
Yeah. I was like, yeah, you need to know who that is. I don't need you telling me who that is. And so it's just always a pleasure to have her in my office. And then I just want to share that we all enjoy celebrating Juneteenth for the music, for the celebration. We have lots of vendors. This is my favorite vendor, who is Evelyn Cooper, with lots of art. That's where I get all my swag. If you think I look fancy, then go see Evelyn Cooper. I love her art. She always has everything to make me look great. And then I know that my sister was actually asking, where is the celebration today? I want to thank you so much, Annie, for all these awesome questions that are totally leading up to this, which is an event that's happening today. So which one of you is actually going to be at the event today? I know I'm going.
I'll make an appearance.
Oh, I think we're all going. And I think this is the big shindig, right? This is it. This is the big event where
this is the culminating event. Yeah,
everybody's coming. Free food, live music. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's always fun when people come to I call it the cookout, right? When people come to the cookout, it's going to be fun. We're going to have some amazing music. So if you're here in the community in Corpus Christi, Texas, we will see you at Cole Park, the park that Alissa Mejia, just uncovered for us, that is truly an opportunity for us to see as an equitable space for everybody to enjoy as they need. And so we definitely need to look at those deeds. I think I am reminded that we need to pay attention to where we have come from. So see you at the Juneteenth for the Crest event that's going to be happening today at 4 p.m. at Cole Park here in Corpus Christi, Texas. Again, lots of food, lots of fun, lots of excitement, lots of community, and we look forward to giving lots of, I guess you could say, side hugs. I feel like COVID has kind of like made things difficult, but if you've been vaccinated, you haven't been vaccinated, however you show up, it does not matter. We appreciate you, we love you, and we look forward to seeing you later today. So super, super excited. We have some fans who've been watching. We have Alvin who says, awesome, love this. And then Leticia, could you collaborate for the crest? Yes, for sure. I think we're all about collaborations. But we do have a question that has come from Leticia. How do we encourage our companies and organizations to recognize Juneteenth? And also, how do we elevate the day off is a day on mentality, right? So does anybody want to share on how organizations can recognize Juneteenth?
I think the one thing that that's mentioned there that she doesn't say is that the one thing that we must be cautious about is, by it being a holiday and people getting a day off, how it can become very commercialized. And so I think that we must be intentional by her question about how we're going to use this as an opportunity to talk about what we're going to do next, what kind of education we're going to speak. You know, you'll hear about other days like July 4th in the history books, but are they really teaching about this? So these are some of the things. And so we really have to, she says, how do we elevate the day off as a day on? It's really a day of service, and how that looks for you may be different, but how are you going to share what this holiday really means? What is the work? Because because you're off doesn't mean that it's over and this is like the celebration, this is the end all. It's now, what is the next step? What is the work that we need to continue doing? There's more like we've been talking about since the beginning, since you showed the vice president speaking, is like we have so much work to do. And so that's the thing that I don't want people to get caught up in. It's the celebration that this is a time that, oh yeah, now we've been acknowledged as this great. No, this is a time when we really put it in second gear and we start really not only embracing what this means, but then executing something to show what it means and what it can mean and how it can propel us or catapult us into the next phase of liberation, freedom. Because I think there are layers to this, there are levels to this, and the work is not over. It's not done. This is just the beginning. Just my opinion.
I'll take the first part of that question, since Tammy did a great job with the second part.
Yeah.
And how do you talk to your companies? Because again, this is a systemic change for many companies to recognize a day like this company-wide or organization-wide. Alissa and I are very fortunate. We work for an organization that immediately recognized it and told us to stay home yesterday, right? The university went down to pretty small operations yesterday in celebration of Juneteenth and commemoration. What I would suggest as a worker, employee, entry-level, mid-level, talk to decision makers, and if you can't get to that level, talk to your supervisor who could perhaps get to a decision maker and let them know how important that day is to you. And, you all know I do ally work, so I'm not going to put this on Black folks. I'm going to put this on the allies too. You need to let them know how important it is to you. And I'll tell you something I did yesterday, since the university was closed. I always have an automatic message on my email when I'm not in the office. And my automated message included that I was commemorating Juneteenth. And I put a link to find out more information about Juneteenth, because that's one thing I can do, right? So as an educator, I think that's important, that I do that. So it's just important that we all advocate, for the day on, right? Where you're not at the office, but you're out doing some of the things that Dr. Tammy has encouraged us to do.
Wow. So much wisdom there. Wow. So your out of office needs to have education. I love that. Can I just say, I am surrounded by doctors. Okay. So I am being educated. And so I want to thank you all so much for being here. Can I just point out that we have the most amazing fans. We have Shantae Mitchell, who actually knows Pat Taylor, who was in a picture previously. So I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. And yes, may she rest in power. And so I want to thank you so much. And actually, I was looking through the comments and I misread Leticia Wilson's comment. So could you elaborate, not collaborate, for the crest? And so could you elaborate for the crest? So the crest is a community here in Corpus Christi. Does anybody have more information on that?
Yes, it's on the north side of Corpus Christi where Black people were stayed, and that's where they are. And that's why when I was talking about Cole Park, like actually the part of the seawall is closer to the north side. And so it's on the north side of Corpus, and there's a neighborhood called Hillcrest. And that's actually the neighborhood. And there's a Hillcrest Park there and everything. And so originally the Juneteenth celebrations were held at that park. And when they started doing the park celebrations, they were held at that park and part of the 10 days. And because of what they're doing, gentrification, we didn't talk about that. There's some things that we didn't talk about today that we know. So those of you that are here, we know we didn't talk about a lot, but that's happening on the north side. That community has really been moved. The residents in that community have been moved. I want to say forced out, but we're not going to get into that. Been moved out of that community, and the park is no longer there, so they can no longer use that park. So that's when they moved it to Cole Park, which is a park that, as Dr. Mejia mentioned, we were not allowed to even go into. It wasn't even designed or created for us. So it has been moved to that park as an alternative. But they have kept it as Juneteenth in the crest to remind us of the history and where we were originally, Black people originally lived, and that was the only park they could celebrate in. So that's, somebody else may have more, but that's kind of the basic, yeah.
It is. Yeah, and in fact, I think the last 2 years they did it at Cole Park because of, the building of the Harbor Bridge really affected the entire Hillcrest community. But for me, we always went to the crest, right? Like that was where you went. And can I just say, it almost felt like, I don't want to say a pilgrimage, but it's important to go to the location where the people are,
Right. Yeah.
Like and I remember there, it reminds you of where you're going.
I remember we would go through the park and we would hang out at the park. Like it was a hangout every Sunday afternoon after we went to church and all of that. We would go to Hillcrest Park and hang out. And so when they started the Juneteenth celebrations, it was just natural to use the same park and have the celebrations at the same park. But every Sunday you watch, my dad would wash our car, we'll do all that, and we go hang out at the park. And that's where our community, the Black community, hung out and just had fun. The kids could run around and play. There was music and dancing and all those things that are part of the Juneteenth celebration was every Sunday in Corpus at that park. And then they just translated it to the Juneteenth celebration.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. We have an amen. Amen, Dr. Tammy. And then a good idea, Dr. Amy. Can I just say that idea of adding that education to your PTO, I guess, your time off, vacation, whatever, you're out of office, whatever, for your signature is epic. I've never thought of that. That is amazing. So you just gave me a hack how to educate people without knowing that they're being educated. So I absolutely love that. And then I want to also bring in our fan, Shantae. Thank you so much. We love Evelyn Cooper like you would not believe. Like, I love that woman so much. Like, everything she does, I'm like, what are you doing? How can I be a part of it? And like, yes.
She'll be there today at 4:00. You all can see her at Cole Park. She was there last night.
Yeah, all your fancy stuff. I show you all my jewelry, all my awesome stuff that I have. It's all because of her. So I really appreciate that. And I also want to bring in, we have Fred Brandon. Hello, Fred. Thank you for watching. Isn't this the Bitcoin buddy of yours?
Yes. Yeah. You pay attention, Lisa. I'm watching you.
I'm your biggest fan. If you know a big fan, like I follow everything. So agreed. You're my Dr. Tammy, which means I keep you very close. Yes, agreed. I think we need to focus on the next steps of what it means and not view it as just a day off. Yes. So I love it. I love it. I love how Dr. Martin Luther King Day Jr. has actually changed to become a day of service. Somehow or another, we need to change the Juneteenth celebration as being a day of education and self-improvement. Somehow or another, become the best version of yourself because Juneteenth exists. And so absolutely love that. Soraya Nonis James, how's it going? Thank you so much. She's on the road. And so we want to thank you so much for blessing the community by being here on the show with us. We thank you for being here.
And listening while you drive. Yay.
Yes, thanks, Soraya.
Yes, be safe. I'm sure she was the husband. And as a child and teen, I loved the weekly hangouts at Hillcrest Park. I love that.
Yes. It was so fun, wasn't it, Shantae? It was fun.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. And so as we are coming to a close with this event, I do want to remind everybody that we definitely want to recognize TAFE, which is an amazing organization here in Corpus Christi. And Dr. Amy, aren't you a member of that organization?
I am. That's the Texas Association of Black Personnel in Higher Education. And they've been very involved. We've been very involved in the 10 days leading up to this event, as well as the Black Chamber. So just want to give a shout out to those organizations and the work that has been done. And especially to Tina Butler and Coretta Graham. Both are just incredible community leaders, and I think in many ways have picked up the torch from others that we've talked about today.
I love that. Thank you so much. And so what an amazing organization to be a part of. I know, Dr. Tammy, you and I are members of, I'm trying to think of how to point to you. You and I are members of the Black Chamber of Commerce, which is actually sponsoring this event. So we're super excited to be sponsoring. So we're excited. And then
collaboration.
I want to give a shout out to, we have some amazing people watching. And yes, Tammy Francis, it was time to spend time with family and friends. Good times and beautiful memories. Love that. Yes. And then I know that Soraya Nonis James has her daughter with her, who is called Evelyn. And for those of y'all who don't know, when we talk about education and improvement of our youth, Evelyn is Soraya's, I almost said Evelyn Cooper. Evelyn James is the daughter of Soraya Nonis James, and she has authored these books, y'all. She is, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting how old she is? I think she's 10 or 11, and she wrote these books. So she has this series of books that she writes. I think she has a book also about COVID. And so I just want to say that maybe Juneteenth is a day of kids being authors, right? Be the author of their story, tell their story. What does Juneteenth mean to them? And we publish all these stories of how kids are being, how kids are celebrating Juneteenth. Just putting it out there, all the ideas are good ideas, right? And so with that, I want to thank you all so much. Dr. Amy, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I know you could be anywhere in the world right now. You could have been asleep because you probably spent so much time at the party yesterday. So I want to thank you so much for spending your Saturday.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And we know that you are a wealth of knowledge in our community. You actually have a book that's called From Thought to Action, right? It's about social justice. And so I want to encourage everybody to just Google Dr. Amy Aldridge Sanford and your mind will be blown. Purchase the book and learn all about, I think we're moving towards action, right? Making sure that we have systemic change in our community so that we have equitable access to resources.
Juneteenth is one thing on the road of many things, Voting Rights Act, many things that need to be done.
Yes.
To make America better.
Yes, I love it. And, make it better and make it where everybody is comfortable to be the best version of themselves, right? And I just think about how you just don't want to feel like you don't fit. I want to fit, and I think this is how it happens. This is how it happens, and so super excited. So thank you so much, Dr. Amy and Dr. Mejia. Oh my goodness, our research scientist here. Thank you so much. I know you and I have been friends for a long time, so I want to thank you so much for everything that you have done in our community. Not only do you do parks work, but you also do, I guess you could say, you have a holistic approach to your life, right? So you have the mental, you have the physical, and the emotional inside. I just thank you so much for your full circle of who you are. You're truly a hero in our community.
And thank you, Lisa, for all you're doing. This is incredible to hold this whole series and bring this attention and education.
Well, you're most welcome. It's truly a pleasure. So I want to thank you so much. So Alissa, Dr. Amy, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time when we call on you. Hopefully you'll come and join us. Okay?
Yes.
We'll see you next time. Oh my gosh, Dr. Tammy!
Oh my goodness.
You know how I feel? I feel like we just got gifted. like
Yeah.
again, you know. I feel like, you know, we can go on and on and on. And I mean, we could talk about how
Yes.
there's so many opportunities in the world, but how important is it to have real life people doing the work here with us to have those conversations with us? And so thank you. Yes, Dr. Amy. Thank you. Yes, Alissa. And I want to say that what Dr. Amy said was, this is truly the real Independence Day, because July 4th was not independence for every American. And so I just hope that through this day, we can, you know, through hope and prayer, we can truly see this day as the day where everybody, you know, came to their being, right?
Right.
So yeah. So with that, I think we can truly end the show. But in closing, I want to let you know that on this show, JEDI Talks, we string the words together: justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And Dr. Tammy, I want to let you know that in that order of JEDI, it kind of makes a nice, catchy name, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But
JEDI.
you know, as we really think about it, I was just kind of milling around in my brain the other day, and I was thinking the acronym should actually go the other way, right?
Right.
So I want to start off by just giving a little bit of an education about JEDI. So JEDI is JEDI, which is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. But we want to start with being inclusive, right? I think when we're thinking about everybody being a JEDI, being inclusive is really the true and deep effort of understanding and welcoming people from different lived experiences than ours, and fostering diversity and appreciating the fact, like Doctor, oh my gosh, you are a doctor.
Soon.
Doctor. Leticia Wilson, you're already a doctor. You're on your way, right?
The future.
Doctor. Oh my gosh. Okay. I know she's working on her doctorate, so pre-doctor.
Yes, the future.
Yeah. Leticia Wilson likes to say, you need to be the sum total of your lived experiences. Yeah, you bring your full self. And so I want to say, if you're looking to be a JEDI, because this show is all about activating you to be a JEDI, be inclusive. See people as they truly are and appreciate their lived experiences. And then let's go to the D, which stands for diversity. And diversity is about bringing many people with different stories, backgrounds, skills, and needs into one place. But this requires equity to be sustainable. So do you see why I flipped it?
Yes, I do. And then then of course you have justice, right?
Yes.
That's the work. That's the work.
So equity is about giving us the resources we need. And then justice is truly about a society where everyone, regardless of who they are, is equally able to live a full and meaningful life. And everybody has a different journey. So when we think about making assumptions about the complexity of the human experience, you have to think about how the JEDI way is really the way to go. So I guess just in closing, I want to thank our panelists who are here with us. And I want to thank you, Dr. Tammy, for being here with me as an advocate. I just want to hug you every time I see you. So thank you so much for being here.
I'll take it. You know I love hugs.
Yeah. And I'll see you later. We're going to be later at Cole Park, enjoying it up. Yeah, we're going to be having fun.
Bring lots of water.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's going to be hot. We have some fans who said that, well done, ladies, well done. We have my sister saying thank you. And then we definitely have Leticia Wilson. Thank you all for this JEDI Talk. I appreciate what you do, each of you. Yes, we're super excited that you are all joining today, because we would not be here today if it wasn't for you. So we want to thank you. And, thank you for helping to ensure that this show continues to go on. So if you want to find out more about the JEDI movement, I would encourage you to go to our website. Our website is poweruptalks.org/JEDI. And wherever you are watching or listening, please be sure to subscribe. I want to thank you so much for your time. And I hope that you make today, can we say a JEDI-worthy day? We hope you make today a JEDI Juneteenth worthy day, right? So make today an amazing day. And we will see you next time. So let's say bye, Dr. Tammy.
Bye. Thank y'all for joining us.
We'll see you next time. Bye.